was beautiful, man. Welcome back to Andertons TV, everybody, and my special guest today is Shawn Tubbs, all the way from sunny Nashville, and you've been over in Europe at a couple of shows and things like that, but fortunately you found time to come and see us on Andertons. So thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thanks so much for letting me.
Now, many of you will recognize Shawn from some of the YouTube gear demos he's been doing over the last few years. But I was excited to meet Shawn just because of your rich history of guitar playing, going back, you know, cutting your teeth in worship music, but then, you know, getting a break with the Stone Temple Pilots, which is insane. Huge Carrie Underwood tour. You've been working with the guys at Revv, which is probably where I know you a bit more.
Yes.
But let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the young Shawn. Not that you're not young anymore, but you know what I mean. The sort of the very young Shawn Tubbs.
I was quite a bit younger then.
What was it that drew you to the guitar?
It was my dad. Yeah, and he had this little band called the Orbits when he was in high school. And yeah, he always had this old Nashville Town and Country. Remember those? Yeah. Yeah, basically like a Gibson brand. Yeah. Bolt-on neck. He had one of those laying around all the time. He wasn't really playing much, but that's where I kind of gravitated to it. And yeah, he taught me a few chords, and then I was hooked and off to the races. You know, that's really it. Yeah.
Can you remember who the big influences were, other than your dad, but just, you know, what was on the radio at the time?
Oh, that early on. It was a lot of Willie Nelson. And, you know, that's what my parents were listening to. Because, you know, I was 5 or so. Yeah. You know, so yeah, so it would have been Willie Nelson and probably Johnny Cash and, you know, all the country stuff is really yeah.
And then did you go to music college and stuff, or were you largely sort of self-taught?
I did. I almost went to GIT in Hollywood there. And what happened was I went and auditioned and went through the whole 9 yards, and it was because Robin was there, Larry was there, and I was like, man, I want to study with Robin and Larry. So I went and did the whole thing, and I was ready to do it, and my pops was going to throw down with the cash. And as the school year was approaching, Robin left on tour, Larry left on tour, and I just didn't want to do it, you know. And it was nothing. I'm not, you know, slagging on the school, but the whole thing was, I wanted to hang out with Robin Ford, and you know,
was that
some crazy stuff.
So you went from sort of country inspired to more sort of jazzy blues kind of vibe, or what was drawing you into that?
It's hard to, you know, I get the timeline off because, you know, you always had that, had all that kind of stuff, and then it was honestly my brother Lonnie, because Lonnie, he's a great drummer. He doesn't really play anymore, but he's a killer drummer. We actually played in a band together for years, but he was really into like everything from This Mortal Coil to Weather Report, anything Brecker Brothers, Chick Corea. And that's what's so funny is even now I'm not sure where I learned the stuff, but I was constantly hearing it because my brother was constantly playing, you know, Bruford records. And so I think that's where the kind of wanting to play more kind of, I guess, fusion-y, I call it just wrong. But I think that's where a lot of that came in, hearing sax players like Wayne Shorter and of course, you know, Brecker, Coltrane, you know, stuff like that. And I never learned anything note for note, but I would hear the tonalities and think, oh, what's that like? You know, and then find the shapes and try to tweak it into a major scale, which is the only thing I know.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I kind of morphed into that. And then, you know, all the classic rock like Boston and, you know, come on, you know.
Who didn't?
Foreigner.
For sure.
I think I even mistakenly got into Styx. Don't anybody get mad. No, Styx was awesome. Tommy Shaw is the man. But yeah, so there was definitely a lot of rock and roll in there, and my dad was a big like Seeger fan, so he loved Bob Seger, and of course the Eagles, and you know, so all that stuff was kind of meshed in there. But really, the wrong playing came from my brother Lonnie. I blame it all on him.
So when the dream of going to GIT kind of fizzled out, what did you do then?
It was basically, I kept doing a lot of either what would be considered vanity sessions.
Right.
Or I was still doing a lot of session work for, at the time, I think it was Vineyard Music Group, and then it turned into Mercy. But I was also doing Maranatha, a lot of sessions for Maranatha. Just general worship stuff.
Is a vanity set? I've never heard the phrase. Is a vanity session one where it's good exposure and no money?
No, it's actually no. It ends up being a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a vanity session. I did vanity sessions for like David Crosby would be producing somebody,
Right. Okay.
and he would hire all the cats that he digs to come and do their thing, and they weren't necessarily like an amazing artist, but they had the money,
Yeah.
and they knew David, and he would just bring in all the
I
cats and
see.
we'd do 4 songs.
Right,
And get,
yeah.
get paid a couple grand, under the table, off the radar.
So you must have been then, just to be someone that people would call or would recognize, you must have been playing all the clubs and stuff and just working hard, getting your face around, weren't you?
Well, it really wasn't so much playing clubs. I did some of that. I definitely had my top 40 days. But no, it was actually where I really started getting the inroads to that was when I started working with Crystal Lewis. She's a big gospel artist, and I was doing a lot of arranging and playing for her. I played on several of her records, and that's how I met a lot of the guys that pointed me towards kind of the bigger, once again, like vanity sessions. It's like David Crosby's kid, James Raymond, was keys on all those sessions, and he and I hit it off, and we even did, I did some TV in LA. There was a show called To Have and To Hold.
Right.
And it was kind of like a 30-something. You ever remember that show? You guys go when you're.
I don't think we have.
But yeah, he and I would do a lot of acoustic arrangements, and so yeah, we had just hit it off. So it was really from that side of it that things kind of blossomed.
Now I know the worship scene is massive, especially in the States, but I don't see any sense of crossover where the next gig is Stone Temple Pilots. So how does this happen?
Yeah, well, and I'll be honest with you, I had kind of checked out of that scene. I just kind of, nothing against the scene, but I'm one of those guys that just kind of burns out, and I just want to turn the page.
Yep.
Stone Temple Pilots, I'll try not to make this too long, but I went to high school with Scott Weiland, and my brother Scotty, my twin brother Scott, was best of friends with Scott Weiland.
Right.
So went to high school with him, and knew him all through high school and up until I actually ended up playing with him. But it was really Revv D20 that kind of brought me into playing with them. Revv D20, I met him through actually hiring him for a shop that my brother and I used to work at and manage. That's Mesa Boogie Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it's up there on Sunset.
Which is, if you're like into your guitar gear, it's the best shop in Hollywood as well. Or it certainly was last time we were there.
Oh no, it's still pretty sick.
Yeah.
It's a really nice shop. But yeah, Rob was working there.
Right.
And we just, once again, became friends. And what had happened was, they've obviously had a hit record and they're doing all their thing. They wanted to do MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
And at the time I was playing a lot of acoustic guitar, taking a lot of sessions on acoustic guitar. So Rob approached me to, basically just help Dean, I was like, how do I help Dean? Dean's a beast. What do you mean help him? But he was like, can you just show up and, help us arrange for acoustic?
Yeah.
And so I showed up at the rehearsals and worked with Dean arranging, and it was Dean that was like, why don't you just play on this? It'd be so much easier. So that's how that turned into MTV Unplugged and the Saturday Night Live thing. I mean, the story's way longer than that, but yeah, that's the...
I mean, that little, whatever it was, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe even shorter than that, MTV Unplugged bubble, it didn't get any bigger than that in terms of, music you could see on TV.
Yep. Yeah, well, that was the thing. I mean, and so many great, whenever you saw an MTV Unplugged, they were all just so good.
Yeah.
And you don't really see that now, you don't really see Unplugged that much, but
It's
yeah,
nobody
was a
can
great
play any
era.
instruments anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's just a different world, but yeah, it was crazy exciting. And the kid on congas was actually my brother, because what happened was Eric Kretzel, he was a bit miffed that I got to play, but his pal Lonnie, my brother, he was like, well, if Shawn's playing, then Lonnie comes. And Lonnie's like, what am I going to do? He's like, I don't know, congas?
I just think and all those, it spawned so many classic new arrangements of classic old rock songs. And I missed MTV Unplugged, it's
great.
Anyway, so a couple of unbelievably cool gigs with those guys, and then tell me about. I mean, I guess your biggest single period of time with an artist is the Carrie Underwood gig.
Yeah, that was a little over 14 years.
Which is, that's a long time, isn't it, to play?
It's a minute.
But she went from, obviously a relative unknown before the American Idol thing to probably the most recognizable female vocalist for a time, in the US, if not in the world.
Yes.
But what was, tell me about that, because I know just before we filming, you were saying you only had like a day's notice or something of before your first gig.
Yeah, and well, the whole thing was kind of crazy because I was actually contemplating kind of winding out of doing guitar to make money. I was going to find other avenues so I could just do guitar, because all I wanted to do was play gypsy jazz,
Wow.
And so I was thinking
what might you have done? Where was this going to go?
I was actually thinking about getting into fiber optics with my brother, because my brother owns a fiber optic
company. You made so much more money out of that. Had you done?
I know, right?
Can you believe it? Like 15, 20 years ago, getting into fiber optics, and I stayed with the guitar.
I know, and that's the thing. My brother always looked at me and goes,
from his mansion swimming pool.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, that's what I was contemplating, and the musical director on what I used to do, these Christian events called Promise Keepers, massive events, and the musical director was friends with Carrie and her management, and they called him saying, hey, we need somebody like really fast, and he threw my name in the hat, and he even called me. He's like, look, man, Carrie Underwood needs a guitar player. I threw your name in the hat. They probably won't call you because there's obviously a bunch of cats in Nashville, but just so you know. And literally right after I got off the phone with him, the phone rings, and it's the new musical director for Carrie's band saying, hey, would you be interested in possibly doing the gig? And I said, yeah, of course. He's like, can you red eye out to Nashville? And I was like, yes. And so I red-eyed out, and really it was just to meet Carrie and make sure that she didn't hate me, which is, luckily, she seems like she didn't. And I met with her briefly at a hotel, and we chatted for a bit, and then they handed me a board CD saying, you got 3 days to learn 22 songs, jump into an already existing tour with blocking and choreography.
Brilliant.
Ta-da! And even then, I was like, sure. But yeah,
what else are you going to say?
I think it took years off my life. But
it was really stressful, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah, and I didn't, my guitar gear was scattered all over the place. I didn't even own an acoustic guitar that I could tour with. I had a guitar that, I would never take on the road. I had a beautiful, it's like there was no way that would go on the road. So my pops threw down and bought me like a Clapton Series Martin from a shop out there. And I paid him back. But I rehearsed everything basically with a guitar direct just into my console with headphones. And and because my pedal board was on a truck. So it was just, it was mayhem. And then, I got there the first gig, and I don't want to brag, but I killed it. And then the second gig, I played with my fly down, so I didn't kill it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
Because I'd have to sit.
I see what you mean.
I'd have to sit with Carrie on a stool and play acoustic songs with her. So I was sitting like this, and I was like, "Why are people looking at me so much?" There's this really pretty girl right here
as well.
It's like they're looking at me with like a smirk, and there's this beautiful girl right next to me. And had I gone commando, so anyways, so I was a humbling.
Is that on YouTube somewhere? We need to find.
You know what? It probably is. But so it was like, okay, back down to earth, guy. You're still a monkey.
So, 14 years on the road. Did you do some writing with her as well, or what was
no? She always had like a set of session cats, because it was like Mark Bright and Dan Huff were basically producing the records, and she always just kind of left it up to them. Right. She didn't really press into having, I want these guys. She was just always like, hey, I mean, we would go and record anything that had to be played live but pre-recorded. We'd go do all that. But I didn't really write with her. It was pretty much just touring.
Would you have said that was pretty much your full-time gig, or were you doing other side projects?
Well, when we were off tour, I would go back to just taking like sessions, mainly from LA. I haven't really pushed into the Nashville market that much, because I get enough work just from guys that I know from all those years in LA. So I would just go back to that, and then when she kicked back in, it was off to the races.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so interesting talking to you before we started filming, and you know, honestly, the narrative is so similar to Pete, Danish Pete, that you know, you guys will know, in that from the outside looking in, we just see this glamorous looking lifestyle of, you know, stadium tours and tour buses and adulation, etc. But all the time you were missing your kids growing up and missing out on all sorts of other sort of important family stuff. So, you know, after 14 years, what did you just wake up one day and go, I just got to just not do this anymore? Or?
Yeah, and honestly, that's a characteristic of mine anyways. But I remember on the Cry Pretty tour, or not Cry Pretty, but Storyteller, that was the last tour. I remember towards the end of the tour, and that's what people don't realize, is you just get, or at least I did, I just got incredibly lonely. And that's how I knew, you know, maybe I should be thinking about turning the page. And then there was some downtime. And then, of course, the Cry Pretty tour was creeping up. And, of course, COVID was kind of screwing everything, you know, all that stuff. But as they were kind of ramping up to that, and I was getting the emails, it was just that, it was like a light switch. It was like, man, I need to make some phone calls because I think it's time to... And it was hard. I mean, I you know, was teary-eyed, you know, talking to them on the phone saying, hey, it's just time for me to, you know, turn the page, you know, because they were like, is there anything we can do to get you to stay on? And I was like, honestly, there just isn't, you know, it's just time to change, you know. So but I don't want to say that like I regret, because that was an amazing time. You know, I played Royal Albert Hall for crying out loud. I mean, come on. But at the same time, yeah, I just knew it was time to turn the page and yeah, be with my kiddos and yeah, see what other, you know, things come up. You know?
Well, I mean, certainly it's crazy, really, isn't it? Because there's guys like you and Tom Bukovac, and in fact, I could probably there's probably a dozen or more guys that you could name that, had it not been for a conscious decision at some point to say, let's just go and sort a YouTube channel out and then maybe do some lessons or do some gear demos or whatever like that, I think you know, the wider guitar playing community just wouldn't know who any of these people were. And it's kind of amazing that we do now get to see a little bit, you know, more about, you know, you and how you play and what gear you use and stuff. So since the Carrie Underwood thing, and I guess great timing given that COVID would have decimated anything that
it did.
You might have had planned for that sort of 2 years or so.
Yes. Yeah.
But you started doing demos, and I certainly remember you were always the kind of the go-to guy for, you know, lots of pedal brands and stuff if they wanted that kind of Nashville, and you know, you took to it kind of like a duck to water. I don't really remember I don't remember sort of feeling like there was an early part of your YouTube career where you sort of weren't very good at doing the demos. You just sort of like instantly were really good at doing them.
It was weird. It was Chris Van Tessel with Rocket Pedals. He was the one that was just constantly like prodding at me like, hey, do demo videos, you'd be great at it. And for me, I was like, man, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to talk to a lens. It's like, I'm just going to be...
That's my best friend there. What are you talking about?
I'm going to be a zombie, you know. And I just went for it. And I think my first demo was a Rocket Pedals product, and it was my first kind of take a swing at it. And for one thing, I actually enjoyed it. One of the things I really love about demoing, because I don't really review. I'm not a review guy. I just demo. It's like, here's how it sounds. But it's just, if the product isn't a fit for me, then I very politely... is being able to just play whatever I want to play. That's my favorite part about the actual just performance is I just let the product kind of dictate how I feel, and then I just run with it. So I'm always in record while I'm discovering the product, and then I'll go back and listen through and find the one little thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to latch on to that, and that's going to be the performance. So it's really enjoyable. I mean, I'm very nervous on camera, and people, you know, have honestly like worried about my health because they'll see like a shake. Oh, really? And it's just, I've got terrible nerves on camera. I always have. It's like one of the demons and dragons that I deal with. But yeah, I just grew to really enjoy it. It's like something I honestly like doing.
I think that's, I mean, I love the idea that you know, that you allow what the product's doing to sort of influence the style that you're going to play in. And I kind of feel, you know, for non-guitar players who are always like, why do you need another guitar? Why do you need another pedal? Why? And it is a bit like, some of it is just because you want to have more stuff. But I think there's a lot of it is just like, sometimes just that's what it takes to tap into some new vein of creativity.
Yep.
And it 10,000 different overdrive pedals,
Yes,
but sometimes you just need the 10,001th to just unlock something.
And sometimes it is kind of that 10% is 100% sometimes, just to kind of wake you up.
Yeah.
And everybody has their thing, especially when it comes to pedals. Some guys will buy a pedal just because it looks cool. And honestly, honestly, but I think that's fine. That's the whole point, is if you're just loving playing guitar and you're just a nut about it and you want to buy 100 different overdrives.
Isn't if we're really honest, isn't that everything?
Yeah.
I mean, what haven't you bought recently that you didn't buy partly because it looked cool?
Yeah.
Well,
and it's just it's just fun. And same with guitars. It's like a guy like me needs another guitar like a hole in the head. But if I see something, it's like, I kind of want that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, look, let's talk about gear then.
Yeah.
And there's 2 or 3 things that I'd love to talk about. So what has kind of shaped your setup over the years? What's become your sort of go-to kind of stylistically sort of gear? And then we should talk about the Revv thing, but I'm kind of interested, how is the demoing kind of, but presumably that must have really expanded your just sort of knowledge and understanding of what all of the kit kind of does.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to. I tend to be a bit of a creature of habit. Like back on the Carrie tour, I was a divided by 13 guy.
Right.
So I either had an LDW or I had an FTR 37, and that's pretty much all I used. And I would, what did I pepper in there? Oh, a high watt. I used the Revv's high watt style. Used that for a while and just would use amp switchers, everything on the mics, everything on a Royer 57, 4x12 cab. So that was kind of my world. I didn't, have massive pedal boards. Like I didn't have the Death Star in front of me if I could help it. And that was kind of my thing. And I, even when I was picking overdrives, it was really just not so much what I wanted, but what would, fit the gig. So it would be, a silver Klon. It might be some rocket pedal stuff. That was all based on that. I mean, for me personally, I'm not super into like high gain stuff, but then at the same time, it's like if someone hires me for a solo and they want like a flashy, slick solo, then I've got that.
I was going to say, I've seen you do all that kind of legato, rapid kind of stuff. So
very small doses. If someone's paying me, I'll take a swing at it.
And guitar-wise, have you always, had some sort of Strat derivative, or you got quite an eclectic collection?
I've got a lot of guitars, but it's the same thing. I've always kind of been a Strat guy, especially single hum, because I can just do so much with just one instrument. So I kind of gravitate towards this. But yeah, Les Pauls, 335s, Doozies. Duesenbergs are fabulous. Once again, that was more to facilitate needs.
And you must have played quite a bit of acoustic then on the Carrie Underwood stuff as well.
It was a lot of acoustic. And on that gig I was using, and they were very kind because there's not a snowball's chance I could afford them, but I was using McPherson's.
I've heard the name, but I don't know I don't think I've ever played one. He's like a tiny one-man band kind of builder.
Yeah, I don't think they have maybe 5 or 6 employees that are building all of them. But yeah, they're these absolutely gorgeous acoustic guitars. So I was using those on the road with Carrie. I'm just down to my one acoustic guitar. I have a guitar built by a guy named Roy McAllister. If you look at it, he just builds unbelievably beautiful guitars. But it was David Crosby that kind of put Roy on the map because he did a guitar called the McAllister C, which is a Crosby model. And
what sort of style of acoustic is it?
This one is kind of a cross between like a triple lot and an orchestra model. Beautiful, like old war mahogany back and sides, and then Engelmann top. It's an insane guitar. But the way I acquired that is I was doing these vanity sessions with David, and of course David's an acoustic guitar nerd.
Right.
So he and I would, I had an Olsen at the time, so I was showing up with my SJ, and Dave dug that, and he'd show up with his guitars, and we'd always just kind of nerd out on them. And then, when I was doing kind of winding out of things to put some money in the bank, I sold my SJ because I could get so much money for it. And I, missed it. And David actually threw down and had Roy build me a guitar.
Nice.
His son James, he'd call me. He's like, "Hey man, you left a guitar here. You need to come get it." And I'm like, "I don't leave guitars." And that's what it was. Is gorgeous Roy McAllister.
Oh, nice story.
I mean, there's other acoustics I'd love to have some old Martins. They're just heartbreaking. Like the right old Martin, like an old D series, D45, D25, like. Yikes.
Do you take a trip into Carter's every so often and just sort of fall in love and have your heart broken? This is Carter's vintage guitars near where Shawn lives.
I am so weird because I'm so shy by nature, and when I walk into a shop like that or Groons, I don't pick anything up. I just walk in and just kind of like I'm in awe, and then I just sneak out with my tail between my legs and like. I never play.
we didn't do George Groon's place. Is he? I don't even know. Is that's not central Nashville? Is it? Isn't that sort of slightly further out?
It would be south of Nashville.
Right.
Not too far though.
Okay, but we spent the guys at Carter's kindly opened up on a Sunday morning for us when no one else was in the store.
Oh, nice.
And I'm trying to remember there's mind-blowing selection of stuff, but I think the craziest thing I think we saw there was. He had the Rickenbacker that was allegedly the first electric guitar ever.
Wow!
And you're in a glass cabinet, and you're just looking at this thing, and you're going, "How much is that?" And he's just like, "I have no idea."
Yeah.
And it's like almost like that is basically who knows. I mean, it's crazy kind of. But yeah, it's a great.
Can't put a price on that, but yeah, Nashville is a great place to be a guitar nerd. I mean, the shops are unbelievable. Yeah,
it's a cool place. Well, look, so we ought to talk about Revv, as the Revv guys have very kindly, obviously, sponsored this trip, and I'm sort of familiar with. Or when I think of Revv, I kind of think of the first guys that really started using sort of building amplifiers with the 2-notes technology built in, and the ability to run it with a load, so that like a silent thing. And amazingly, just what you're hearing in this whole thing, and what you heard right at the very beginning with Shawn, we're not plugging this into a cab. We're just going straight into the
TV
mixing
set.
Console.
Straight to the television set, kids.
And we've got a Strymon Flint on the floor to add some reverb, and if you hear tremolo, that's where it's coming from as well. And then we've got your new signature overdrive pedal.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a signature product before?
No. A little bit of history with Revv is how I met Derek Eastfeld with Revv is he hired me to do demos. He was like, "Hey, would you like to demo this product?" And I started demoing them, and at the time they were known as more of kind of a metal brand.
Yep.
And I started having conversations with him, basically saying, "Hey, you can do quite a bit more with these amps than just play metal," because I'm not a metal player, and I was demoing them that way. And it's been about 4 years now, but I kind of grew into doing some product development with them, and one thing kind of led to another, and Dan and Derek, basically, asked, would you be interested in doing, a signature product? And that was hard for me because as a session player and guys toured, it's like, well, that's hard because like a signature thing, it's like I've always just done what fits in the track. So signature is kind of different, but that's really how, it led to that. It was just Dan saying, hey, do you have a sound in your head, and maybe I can figure it out.
Was the idea behind the pedal to just have like one drive pedal that would enable you to do the bulk of the sort of session work and live work that you've done over the years?
Yeah, I mean, this one is definitely pointed more towards me. So I like single channel tube amps, non-master volume that you can just kind of crank, like so think old like Tweed high-powered twins or JTMs, amps where they're super expressive and really open. But even that, I don't want it to be just this thing or that thing. Can we kind of make it an amalgamation of all of that? Even the little Fender Tweeds on the mic are really cool. So that's what it was. I didn't have like I wanted to sound like a JCM 800. It was more just let's try and cram all this into one box and see where it leads, and it is quite versatile, but it's hard for me to say, well, it's this or that. It's just the the marbles bouncing around in my noggin, you know.
Well, let's have I mean, before we switch the pedal on, there was a couple of cool features on the amp that we might as well talk about, specifically around whether you were engaging the 2 notes output pre or post the power section, and again, some of the sort of the boosted tones and how that, but yeah, maybe we just get some tones out of this first and then we'll kick the pedal in.
Yeah, so the way, you know, everybody's hearing it right now. So you can hear, and the way it's set right now is, you know, you go to like neck position, lower output, it'll really clean up. But if you hit it with a humbucker, it'll bark. Yeah. So with this is with the gain position pulled out. If you want this amp to be really clean, you can push that in and turn the volume up. Now it's smoother, almost like a black face.
Yeah, so a softer kind of Fender.
Yeah. But, you know, and we did this push-pull for gain, but what it does is it also spreads everything out. There's more lows. The high end characteristic changes slightly. It's not quite as, I guess, honky. And I mean, that's how I like to run it. And then I'll just kind of adjust treble accordingly. If you want more kind of bark, that's not
all on the EQ.
Anymore. Yeah. Because that's the one thing I always missed, or I wished was there on, you know, like a Fender Deluxe, is a mid control. You know. Having that on there is great.
Do you, are you one of these guys that spends hours and hours making their own virtual cabinets, or are you just basically...
I am not. Yeah. Yeah, I try to just find one cabinet. It's normally, like right now we're actually on the 1x12 cab. If we go to the 4x12, way bigger. Takes up some more space. But yeah, I tend to be the guy that's like, I want a Royer, I want a 57, probably V30s, and leave me alone. Yeah, I'm, you know, but the guys that, you know, but I'm not slagging on cats that love having mass amounts of IRs, but yeah, for me, my little brain just wants to settle and then play. But yeah, you can do whatever you want. I mean, the nice thing about this is if you do have your own personal IRs that you love, you can load those in all these slots, and you can just bang between them without needing to plug in software, you know?
When I first started working with the 2 Notes guys, and they were just like, oh, because they gave me one of the Capture X products, which I thought was a cool product. It's the same software that you know, the torpedo editing software is basically the same software. And they're, oh, just give us your email address and we'll unlock the license for like everything.
Oh no.
So like, oh, okay, fine, like that. The next thing is like, there's 5,000 cab sims to choose from, like that. And I'm like, well, how do you know which one you're going to like? Well, you just go through them, you audition them like this. I'm like, what, 5,000 cab? And it's like, yeah, some people do. And I'm just going like, can't you just tell me which one the best one is? And they're like, well, there's no such thing as best. And I'm just like, oh. So I think I ended up auditioning 10 before I'm just like, I'm bored now. So I just used my favorite one of the first 10. There's another 2,990 cab sims that I've never even, but and I talked to, you know, I don't know, you might, there's the guy we have on the show from time to time called Revv Massad, got the afro.
Revv is awesome.
He is so into the whole, you know, he'll spend hours making his own cab sims, and he works with Nolly, and you know, it's like, and I guess that's the beauty, isn't it, with this? There's something for everybody. You can just go, I'll just use the 412 and the 112, that's it. Or, you know, I'll go on a journey and find it, you know.
Or you can deep dive, because you can go nuts. And then, you know, when we were talking about the pre-post, you can model different tubes. You can basically bypass the
that's clever.
6v6 power section.
So I've not seen that before, but essentially what you're saying is you, within the 2 Notes software, you switch off the power amp emulation, just leave it as a cab emulation, and actually, you know, you get the real power amp from here. Or you can switch off the power, I guess, tap out of the signal before the power amp here and use the power amp from the 2 Notes.
So you get KT88s or EL84s or 34s. So it works really well. I'm kind of a 6v6 fan.
And what are we hearing on this?
This is the 6v6s.
So we're using the power amp in.
Because if I were to shut that off, that's just the 12AX7s straight. Still sounds kind of cool, but you would turn on other power, you know, to tweak it.
So let's look at this.
Yeah.
We've got here,
What is
what
that?
have we got? Yes, I'm not sure really.
Yeah.
It's just, I must admit, we should say
It's
thank
been
you
there.
so much to DHL who rescued the day today, as when Shawn arrived, we had no pedals. And then DHL delivered them about 20 minutes after Shawn arrived and saved the day.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you, DHL.
Yes. So drive on one side, boost on the other side.
Yes.
And so what makes this different to a regular? Is it this tilt EQ thing?
It really is, because that, for me, I knew that this wasn't high gain. I consider this medium gain. So I knew I was going to want some sort of boost in front of it just to create a little bit more saturation or just kind of harmonic complexity. But you know how it is with single knob boost pedals is as you start cranking them, you're going to start getting these anomalies. You're going to start getting highs that are taken off on you, or woolly lows, and you just can't get it under control. But you're trying to get to a gain structure that you love, and it's just hard to do. So I thought, well, we'll do 12 dB of clean boost, but I want what's called a tilt EQ. I could have done like a bass mid treb thing, but it's like that's so much circuit. I wanted a way more simple circuit. So this tilt EQ does exactly that.
Like a notch filter type thing?
It's not so much a notch. What it does is it basically does this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's going to cut lows, add highs, and then the opposite.
And vice versa.
Yeah,
okay.
so
you know what I like about EQ controls like that? I like that it's at its two extreme settings, it still sounds usable for something.
Yeah.
So many pedals have, they'll have a treble or a bass control that all the way up or all the way down. It's completely unusable. It just makes no sense,
Yeah, and that was really difficult because when I was working with Dan on that, I did not want that to be overly active, but I was at the same time wanting to push the parameters of how active it would be to just kind of cover all the bases. But yeah, that's great to hear, because that's what I wanted. I didn't want it to be useless all in one extreme or the other,
And the tight switch here is doing some sort of bass roll off.
So
type
basically,
thing?
like say like, okay, this is too bright maybe for someone, like over here, too bright. You get it over here and you're digging it, but now there's too much low. Without changing your tone stack, you can just cut lows there. Now you have the same top end. If you don't want to cut as much lows, then you can go up the other way. Cut a little bit of lows, really what that does. I wanted that there because I knew this could happen.
Yeah.
And because what would happen if it's too much bass all of a sudden, then you're going to roll this way, which is going to change the top end you just found. So I really wanted that switch to be there in a static position just to kind of fix that without messing with the tone stack.
Well, let's see if we can go everything from, like a clean sound with a little bit of hair through to
Because
rock and roll as it goes.
I mean, this is kind of my starting. Kind of where I would start. That's my. And we can go, cleaner. More box, right?
Yeah.
Or we can add, we can go ahead and dime it. So it's not like it doesn't have,
Yeah.
it's for.
That's what I've seen on YouTube. But that's.
But you guys just offered me there's a lot of money to do.
Yeah, that was it. We're doing $10 a note, so you just earned yourself about $800 there.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, there's gain on tap for sure, but yeah, and you can go more like if you're more of a blues cat, you can add gain, you can add some top end. You can definitely go that route because the treble, I didn't want it to be unusable like in the extreme. Pretty stingy.
I think even with the treble up, that would work with some guitars.
Oh,
maybe
absolutely.
not that. Maybe not a bolt-on Strat style guitar.
Yeah, but Les Pauls.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Do you know what? It's crazy, isn't it? I find it. I would say at least 75% of the time, I'm very conscious of the fact that you're listening through monitors rather than a regular guitar cab.
Yeah.
And when you stop thinking about that, you know that, because that's the aim, isn't it? Right? It's just don't focus. Just imagine you're playing through a regular guitar cab. It's fairly loud in here. It's not. We're not playing super quiet, but it does sound very fat and realistic.
Yeah.
Is Boost pre-drive or post-drive? Or what?
Strictly pre-drive.
Right.
And I did contemplate like putting a switch so you could reverse it, but I had to just be true to myself. That's just not something I would do. So if it's going to be a signature product, I'd rather just have it be set that way. So from the Boost perspective, like if we're maybe here, which once again, that's my start point. Is this to add the more. Rhythm sound. And then if I want, a different tonality, if I want to brighten it up, and you can see I did the full there. I mean, if I turn that back on, it brings back all those lows, but I want the mids to push, so it's the perception of mids. So if you cut this, then you get a more perceived mid.
So when it says full, you mean that's fully tight as opposed to full everything?
Yeah, essentially, or you could look at it as full would be the most amount of cut.
Yes,
half
I see what
would
you
be
mean.
Half the amount.
Yeah,
but either way, that's how you would look at it. And then if I want this to be a brighter solo tone, I can go for that. So rhythm. I can bring the lows back.
That's a good pedal. That is a good pedal.
It'd be weird if I didn't like it.
Or we could have one of those weird YouTubers where I go, it's okay.
It's not really my thing.
No, I like it. I like it a lot.
Oh,
well, look,
you.
I mean, it's been a pleasure having you in.
Oh, thank you for having me, man.
I kind of want to I thought you had an interesting spin on living in Nashville. So we'll end up with sort of your sort of anecdote of living in Nashville, and you've been there nearly 15 years now, was it?
We're creeping up on 16. Yeah.
16 years. Yeah. So there's always that kind of sense that all the really great guitar players have moved to Nashville now, and but. But it still seems to be that sort of mecca for players that want to go there and see if they can make a career there. So how do you now? How good have you got to be in Nashville to sort of,
Yeah, I used to call Nashville the place that all the great guitar players go to find out they're not that great. That's me. Ta-da! It's per square inch. There's just brilliance. And not just guitar, but on every instrument.
Right.
And really what it is, and it's just the truth from my perspective, is if you're a really, really awesome guitar player, nobody really cares that much because everybody plays that great. So it's more of a surprise if you're not, it seems like. But at the same time, everybody is so sweet in Nashville, and everybody is so supportive of everybody. Like if you want to work, somebody will find a slot for you and plug you into it. But it haunted me when I made one trip down Broadway with all the honky tonks and bars, and you'd hear just insane playing, and you'd poke your head in, it's like some kid you never heard of,
tips.
Never seen, and he's just burying it, like burying me alive, So it's I call it small town but big industry. Because like when I was around LA, because LA is so spread out, it's going to be not very common for you to run into like a famous guitar player. Mm-hmm. But in Nashville, you can be standing on line, getting a burrito, and Brent Mason's right behind you, So it's just, it's great because you're going to run into those cats all over the place. So it's a really exciting place to live if you're a guitar player. And I would never discourage anybody from moving to Nashville. It's like, go for it. If that's your dream, Nashville is honestly where you should be. It's going to be hard, but if you just put yourself out there, somebody will plug you in. For sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you for that last little bit of advice. If anybody's thinking about moving to Nashville now, you've been forewarned. But it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you.
Thank you
so much for coming
having
on. Really enjoyed you showing us through some of the new toys from Revv. We shall put links in the video below for all the products we've included in this video, and obviously Shawn's website. You can check him out as well. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in another video soon. Goodbye. He even coordinated the salute at the end. It's like a professional. Okay.